me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dream. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
I want to make sure that we understand and know how to apply the 12 universal laws. Now, these laws are hidden in plain sight. And most of us know one of the laws, right? This is the law that they put out there. And I've shared it before in the past that, you hear people talk about the law of attraction all the time, right? The law of attraction. But they have very little understanding of how to truly use the law. Like, oh, well, you attract what you want to you based on, your thoughts, based on things. And it's like, oh, yes. And there is so much more to that typically is not explained in the books, right? A lot of sensationalism and motivation from that perspective, but very little explanation. And what I want to do in this particular series is I want to answer questions, make this a dialogue, because I think this is the real missing for our community. Now, a couple of things to open up, because when you start talking about these type of things, those of us who are quote unquote spiritual or religious start to get nervous. Like, okay, now what is Coach talking about this morning? Somebody else might be like, well, this is interesting. I thought he was a believer. And I am. But let me say it this way. Everything on this planet, everything in this dimension is provided by the Creator himself, including these laws. And so just because other folks can use them doesn't mean that they're not his laws. They're principles. King Solomon said it rains on the just and the unjust, which is one of the laws, right? Like the laws, by the way, are all through holy text and scriptures. They're all through it. But if you don't know the laws, then it's very, very difficult to actually pinpoint the law. Be like, oh, well, that's one of the 12 universal laws. Now, here's the other thing I have to say about these type of laws is that just because a man figured it out doesn't take away from the sacredness of the law. Let me say it again. Just because a man figured out the law doesn't take from the sacredness and the sanctity of the law. Now, let me put an example out there. Let me put one quick example of this out there. Matter of fact, I'm going to come back to the example. Because as I'm thinking about it, it's like, you know what? I want you all to understand the origin of the laws too. But, well, hold on. I'm going to share the example. I'm not going to go all the way into it. I'm going to share the example because somebody ain't text the person that means a lot to them yet. Like, and when I tell you to do that, I'm telling you to do it. Matter of fact, this morning our day, he's like, how was your drive in this morning? And I said, there was an accident. I was like, but I left early this morning because I knew there would be resistance to this show. Like, universal law, by the way. Okay? Like, because I understand the laws, I said, you know what? This is important right here. What I'm going to be sharing. And whenever something like this can transform someone's life in a dramatic way, there's going to be an equal amount of resistance to that. So I need to plan for that resistance. So I left the house early. Sure enough, on 290. It was a bad accident. Traffic backed up. I mean, think about it, right? 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Traffic's all backed up. I wasn't even, I just kind of said, yeah, yeah, that's how it goes. Wasn't even disappointed because I anticipated that would happen because I understand these laws. Okay? This is the power of understanding these 12 universal laws, you all. The first way that I can explain this is by bringing in Pareto's Principle. Now, this is not one of the 12 universal laws, by the way. But this is a principle that reveals itself in everywhere on the planet. And I think this is the best way to kind of set the stage for this topic, set the stage for this show. Now, when I say Pareto's Principle, I think that's deceiving in some ways, right? Because there's some man who happened to come across this research. In particular, this man is Pareto, who was an Italian economist. And he discovered this principle of the creator back in 1896. And I say it that way, the principle of the creator, because he happened upon it in his research. And he said, wow. Now, here's what men do. You discover something like that, and they go, "Day, that was huge. That was huge. We're going to honor you." And so, versus honoring the Creator, we're going to honor you because you figured this out. And then we name it after Day, the Day Principle, right? So the Pareto Principle is no different than what we could call the Day Principle, because Pareto just happened to discover it. And we named it after him. But it does not take away from the sanctity of the principle. I really want us to get this, because if we get this, it will transform our lives. It doesn't take away from the sanctity of the principle, and that this is something that the Creator put in place for us to understand. And if we understand it, that it can take our lives to the next level. Now, somebody's thinking, well, I don't even know what the Pareto Principle is. And that's a problem. And that's why I said, wake your folks up this morning, because I'm about to teach. I hope you really get it. I hope you really get it. Now, I'm going to come back and explain what the Pareto Principle is in a moment, right? But let's just keep in mind, I'm setting the context now that it's the Creator's principle that Valfredo Pareto happened to come across. He was blessed to come across. And he used one of the 12 universal laws to come across it. So when I say you want to pay attention today, this will change your life. Almost all of the big self-development names know these principles, right? You take Earl Nightingale, Bob Proctor, Napoleon Hill. Let me go down the list of these different people. What they do is they say, Think and Grow Rich, The Strangest Secret, right? The Science of Getting Rich, right? They have these titles. And then what they do is they pull from the 12 universal laws. Again, remember, principles of the Creator, and they lay out how you should do something, then they put their name on it, right? And by the way, it's no different than what I've done in writing a book too. It's no different. These are principles that the Creator has established. I just really want to put that out there, because sometimes it's difficult to digest some of this stuff when you're like, oh, that's man-made. And it's man-discovered. I want to be very clear. It's man-discovered, Creator-made. The 12 universal laws are not derived from a single authoritative source. So the 12 universal laws are not Christian. The 12 universal laws are not Islamic. The 12 universal laws are not just New Age. They're not just laws like, a lot of times a lot of these things come from Greek philosophy, right? The Greeks took them from Kemet, And these are probably the only things that they didn't take full credit for. They gave the credit to the Hermetic priest that documented them. His name is Hermes Trismegistus. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but you get the point, right? But Hermes, and they call them the Hermetic Principle. Seven of these 12 principles or laws are called the Hermetic Principles because these 7 were documented by this Hermetic priest. Now, Hermetic priest is from ancient Kemet. The Greeks called Kemet Egypt, right? Kemet means land of the blacks. These are, for this community, your laws. These were distinguished by your ancestors. This is what made us who we were. And by losing grasp of these laws, we stopped using them, we stopped understanding them, this has put us in the position that we're in today. This is why I say this is one of the most important lessons that I will teach. Like one of the most important, because most every lesson that I've taught has been derived from one of these 12 universal laws. Okay, so learning the source is very important. Think of them as a set of various spiritual and metaphysical teachings that come from multiple cultures and belief systems. All right, this is why I say it's not just, like Christian principles, Hindu principles, etc. They've been derived from looking at all of these teachings saying, wow, here's what we consistently see. And we see that this rings true all the time. And so it's been called a law as a result of that. They draw on ancient wisdom, esoteric philosophies, and many, many spiritual, ancient and modern spiritual practices. Now, when I say, I don't like saying, ancient and modern, but, you got to put time frames on these things. Let me give you an example of what I mean. One of the things that are called like a modern spiritual practice is this whole idea of breath work and how it changes the body, right? But is it modern or has it been rediscovered? You get my point? So it's not necessarily a full correlation. Okay. Here's another example of what I mean. This theorem is Hermetic. Now, somebody right now is saying, no, it's not. It was named after Pythagoras, who discovered it. Well, he spent years and years and years in ancient Kemet, basically researching the writings on the pyramids. And then he came up with this theorem based on his research. And again, we named it after him, right? But this is a Hermetic principle that is also based on the 12 universal laws. And this theorem basically says that there's a fundamental relationship in geometry between the 3 sides of a right triangle. Many of us know this, right? Some of us don't. And the area of the square whose sides is the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the area of the square of the other 2 sides. All right, for a right triangle. This theorem is Hermetic. This is how they built the pyramids, right? So they understood these laws. They understood these principles. They understood what is now called Pareto's Principle. They understood what is now called the Pythagorean theorem. They understood these things, and these things were documented. So I think it's important for us to approach this with an open mind. Like when you really get, don't notice being close to this. Oh, well, if it's not a scripture, then I ain't with it. It's, because like I said, again, these particular laws are found throughout scripture, and not just in the Holy Bible, but also other holy texts. These laws are provided in a framework. So that way we can understand the underlying principles of each of these laws that govern the universe. This is why I say they're the Creator's laws, because they govern the entire universe. They govern you. And like, for instance, one of the laws is karma. Now, it's not called that, right? One of these universal laws is basically the law of karma, but it's not called that. But when you begin to understand how this law works, you understand how karma works, okay, and why it works that way, and why it will always, whatever you put out will always come back to you, okay? That's biblical, by the way, right? Like, so this is what I'm saying. I really want to make sure we get this. All right. The point is that if we're looking for a real true guide for personal growth and spiritual development, I believe that one of the fundamental ways to do this is to look at the 12 universal spiritual laws. You say, Linnell, they're spiritual? Absolutely, they are spiritual. If they impact this dimension, that means they must live in the spiritual dimension. That's just how it works, okay? I want you to think of these 12 universal laws as divine logic. And what do I mean when I say divine logic? Like, what do I mean by divine logic? Like, this is the 2 plus 2 that the Creator gave us. Like, hey, I just want you, like, here are simple, logical ways of thinking about how to keep my law. Divine logic. So I really want us to understand that, okay? Like divine logic. This is divine logic. And then the other piece is these are the building blocks of creation. So all that exists is based on the first 3 of these universal laws. And these are called the immutable principles, which means they can't change. Immutable, like they will never change. Now, what else never changes? The Creator himself. And so if they don't change, then by correlation, these must be principles and laws that the Creator has provided. Do you understand them? Do you understand them? And that's the conversation I want to have. And then another way to think about this are spiritual principles. 7 of these principles are Hermetic, right? Hermetic because of the Hermetic priests that documented them. And then there are 5 additional laws that expand on the first Hermetic principles. And this is important to understand. There's a reason to understand this. I'm going to break it down as we go. Now, the first 3, I really want to say this, the first 3 universal laws I'm going to share with you, I'm going to talk about those today. These are immutable. And they set the stage of creation itself. The following 4 of these 7 Hermetic principles are mutable, which means that as human beings, we are allowed to influence these laws in how we create what's around us. So as you look around yourself, whatever you see is what you've created based on these 4 mutable laws. There's 2 ways to look at these laws. You can look at these laws from a theologic perspective, right, and a scientific perspective. Now, my personal belief is that theology and science come together in agreement. Now, depends on the scientist. You'll have some that say, well, no, that's not true, right? And depending on the theologian, you have some that would say, no, that's not true, all right? And then you have others who would say, it is. I'm one of those, all right? I'm one of those that says that this is true, that science, when it's done properly, and theology, when it's interpreted properly, come together. They come together and they support us in understanding what it is that we're supposed to do in this particular spiritual journey. Now, theology says that God is. right? God just is. Who is God? God is. There's no further explanation. In fact, the only explanation of God in terms of a definition in holy text is that God is love. That's it, right? He refers to himself in the Old Testament as I am, that I am. So God is, right? God is. Okay. Now, when you look at science, science says energy is. Like, what is energy? Well, energy just is, right? This is what science says. And so when you join the two together, then the takeaway is that God is love energy. We get this? Somebody put that on Facebook. Somebody write that down. Like, the takeaway is, as we're looking at these 12 universal laws, these 12 universal principles, that if we look at theology and science together, that our takeaway is that God is love energy, right? God is love energy. Now, somebody please put that in the Facebook stream. God is love energy. Now, because that is true, because we know that it's backed up by science, it's backed up by scripture. That means that anything else other than God is love energy, right? Or anything other than love energy, like think of love as an energy. Anything other than love energy, anything else is disconnected, chaotic, and fear-based. And this is important as we go into these 12 universal principles and laws. Because what you want to do is bring love energy first for yourself, right? Definitely for the Creator himself and for those around you. Let me say it again in the proper order. You want to bring love first for the Creator, second for yourself, and then third for those around you. Anything outside of that type of energy creates disconnection, chaos, and fear. Anything outside of that energy creates disconnection, chaos, and fear. I hope y'all get this, man. I hope folks really understand how important this is. Now, let me help explain how important this order is and how powerful this order is by explaining to you the Paretos Principle. I'm going to explain Paretos Principle. Again, remember, this is not just Valfredo Pareto's Principle, though. This is a principle that the Almighty Creator has put in place. Okay, now, Pareto's Principle states it's called the principle of least effort. Now, right now, how many of you have been putting forth a lot of effort to live, just to survive? Just to survive. For a moment, just kind of can sit there and think about how much effort that you put forth just to survive. And the Creator has a principle that is called the principle of least effort. This is how we can just tell we're out of alignment. Like if I'm putting a lot of effort for just a little bit, I'm out of alignment. I'm out of alignment, and you definitely need to hear this lesson, like the entire series of the lesson. So this Pareto's Principle is known as the principle of least effort. How many of us can use that in our lives right now? Let me break it down. And by the way, this is I teach this principle to executives, right? I get paid well to teach this principle to executives. You all are getting it right now. You're just getting it for the cost of your attention. And watch how difficult that is for people to pay that price, right? Watch how difficult it is for people to pay the price of attention to learn something that will transform their lives. This is how I know resistance is real. All right. Pareto's Principle states, Again, remember, this is based in God's truth, God's principle. 80% of the results in our work come from 20% of our effort. Like, let that sink in. Day. 80% of the results you create in your work come from 20% of your effort, just 20%. 80% of what you produce comes from 20% of your effort. Same thing for me. Same thing for you, Justin. Okay? Which means 80% of our outputs come from 20% of our inputs. Remember I said inputs are important? Watch your inputs, watch your inputs. I watch your inputs. 80% of your outputs come from 20% of your inputs. This is where if folks say, oh, well, this don't really matter. I can take this in. It's like, ooh, but what if that's the 20%? What if that becomes part of the 20%? Okay? Now, here's another way to think about this in terms of time, because I know a lot of us are still trapped in that time context, right? Another way to think about this is 20% of your time accounts for 80% of your results. 20% of your time accounts for 80% of your results. All right? 20% of your spending accounts for 80% of your money. Like, there's all kinds of ways to think about this. All right? Here's the other side of it. 80% of your time could also account for 20% of your results. Think about that. I'm spending 80% of my time and I only get 20% of the result. That's scary, right? Now, if you're having a hard time believing this, I get it, right? If you never heard this principle. If you've never heard this principle, let that sink in, okay? Now, somebody's saying, well, Linnell, prove it to me. All right, there's research. There's research. This man discovered this in 1896, and people have been trying to disprove it since, and they can't. So you probably should listen. All right? Now, check this out. 20% of the flooring in your home gets 80% of the wear. Just think about this. 20% of the flooring, like some of y'all got marks in your carpet that just track where you walk. 20% of the carpet in your home gets 80% of the wear. Check this one out. 20% of the clothes in your closet gets worn 80% of the time. I walked in this morning. The brothers were talking about the shoes. I got some J's on, right? They're like, I ain't even seen those because I only wear them 20% of the time, right? Right? Now, there's some shoes y'all see all the time. I wear them 80% of the time. You follow? Okay. 20% of the clothes in our closets get 80% of the wear. Some of y'all shaking your head. You know your wife has told you already why you always wear that shirt. Why you always wear that shirt, honey? Well, because you're caught up in one of the principles of the Creator. Tell her that next time. Honey, I can't work outside the principles of the Creator. All right? Get this. 80% of the accidents between motorists are caused by 20% of the drivers. There are folks who just keep getting in accidents. Just keep getting it. If you can avoid them, you can be accident free. All right? Now, let's continue, right? This is everywhere. This is also true for the car you're driving, if you're driving right now. That combustion engine, if you're in a gas-driven vehicle, 80% of the energy in that vehicle is wasted, and only 20% gets to the wheels and accounts for 100% of the motion. Think about this. 80% of the gas you pump is wasted. Nothing you can do about it. 80%, what's gas now? Like a little less than 4? Right? Think about that. Think about that. That means only $1 of the gas you put in your tank per gallon is actually doing its job. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's a principle of the Creator. It's a principle of the Creator. I'm telling you to call your friends. Hey, check this out. In the United States, well, in England, 20% of the cities account for 80% of the people. Wrap your mind around this. You can go in almost any country and the same thing is happening. Because this is one of the laws of the Creator. Now they gave it to Pareto because he figured it out. But when it becomes true like this is one of the laws of the Creator. If you're an entrepreneur, listen. Studies show that 20% of your customers yield about 80% of your profit. Yield about 80% of your profit. If I haven't answered your email yet, now you know why. Right? Like I'm focused on, I forgot, man, I gave y'all suburban prices on gas. One of the brothers put in, it's $4.30. I mean, y'all paying like 40 cents more than me. There's a gas war right now in the west suburbs. The gas station just got put up next to another one. We were talking about it at the gym Friday. They're like, hey man, go here and get gas, like $3.50. Don't make sense to drive out there. Don't do it. Don't do it, right? You're going to burn up a lot of gas. Remember, only 80%. Only 20% is getting to them wheels. Okay. Studies show that 20% of your customer base yields 80% of your profit. Where do you think I'm focusing my business? Where do you think when I tell you these principles will change your life, some of us, we spending too much time with the 20%, and then we're wondering why we're not getting the results we need. Too much time with I'm focused on the 80. Like, where the 80 at? Right? These principles will improve your life. Now, this is not even one of the 12 laws. I want you to wrap your mind around that. This is not even one of the 12 laws. This didn't even get up there with it. This is not one of the top 12. But this particular principle, when you understand it, will change how you work, change where you focus, change your revenue, and change your life. Talk about transformation. For those of us who are listening, how do you apply this to your life since I'm on it? You got to get strategic. This is why I say strategy matters. This is why with Slay Your Goals members, I say, hey, focus on your goals. Create strategy time. Spend time at the beginning of the month mapping out where you're going to put your time. Because what will be revealed to you in that is how to take 20% of the time you used to take to yield 80% of your results. Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, all these books pull from the 12 universal laws. Okay, in particular, they focus in on just one of those laws called the law of attraction. And think about that. They take one law of 12 laws, and that by itself can begin to shift somebody's life. What if you begin to apply all 12? That's all. That's why I really want us to really understand that there are principles and laws out there that can directly impact our lives. And if we understand that, and we first get that how we energetically begin to shift our frequency, which is a law, is to the frequency of God is love energy, and I need to be love energy. That's the first big shift. That's the first big shift. Some of us, we're just mean, and we can't understand why things don't go well for us. Some of us, we just it's hard to get along with, difficult, disagreeable, and we wonder why things aren't going well for us. And it's like, well, it's it right there. Anything that is not in alignment with God is love energy, or love energy itself, is chaotic. I said it before, right? Disconnected and fear-based. Most people who are disagreeable, most people who have a difficult time getting along with others, it's because they're afraid of something, typically being taken advantage of. And they allow that fear to be their frequency, so everything they create comes off of that. And as we learn more about these 12 universal laws, you'll begin to understand why it happens to them that way. So the law of divine oneness, or another way you can say this is the law of divine unity. This is law number one. Again, remember the first three laws are immutable. These laws cannot be manipulated. They cannot be changed. It is imperative that we understand these if we want to create powerfully in our lives. Okay? Now, it just dropped in my spirit. Somebody's like, well, Linnell, should you be teaching this? Is this new age knowledge? Shouldn't we just be praying for the things that we want? Shouldn't we just, is this what we should be doing? I'm going to say absolutely 100% yes. I believe that the quote unquote people of God are lacking because they don't have this knowledge. And a lot of us have been praying, taking no action, intentional action being one of the universal laws. A lot of us, if we understood that intentional action was one of the universal laws that would get us where we need to be, then I wouldn't have to teach you that faith is not just operating in belief. It is belief plus action, right? But we get it mixed up. And so this is why this is so important. Number one, the law of divine oneness. This law states that we are all connected. We are all connected. Think of ourselves like the raindrop. The raindrop is basically a part of the strength of the ocean. One little raindrop. You've been walking down the street. It's a sunny day. And then like a drop hits your head. And it seems insignificant. Right? You're like, oh, it's insignificant. But that drop is connected to the massive power of the ocean. Now, what does that mean for you? It means that you are connected to the divine power of the Creator. And once you begin to get this, that you cannot be separate in many ways, right? And this is, I've said it before, a lot of times condemnation comes in, we separate ourselves. But at the moment that you reconnect up here, by the way, these 12 universal laws are sometimes referred to mentalism. And they're referred to mentalism because when you reconnect in the mind, then all of a sudden everything shifts. So just as each raindrop contributes to the whole of the ocean, each of your actions, each of your thoughts affect the interconnected web of your life. Each one. Like, you'd be like, well, Linnell, just because I look at a little porn doesn't have an impact on my marriage. Each drop influences the power of the ocean. We got to get this. We have got to really understand how the law, this one law right here, I could spend the rest of the morning, the rest of the show talking about this one law. The law of divine oneness. We've got to understand, I know I talk crazy to my husband sometime, but he can take it. It's like, yeah, each drop, it impacts the interconnected web of your marriage. Each drop, each thing, everything is connected. So then if that's the case, if everything hangs on this law, then I got to start being really, really thoughtful about my actions, really, really thoughtful about my words, and incredibly diligent about my thoughts. Now, here's another way to think about this. In the vastness of the universe, imagine that the vastness of the universe is a pond. It's a pond, right? And remember, as vast as we believe the universe is, all this can be in the hand of the Creator, right? In the hand of the Creator. And so we have a piece of him in us to manipulate this vastness in this universe. We got a piece of him, just a small piece. But again, remember the law of divine oneness. That piece is incredibly powerful. So imagine that you are the pebble, your thought, your action, your word is the pebble that is tossed into a calm lake. The water looks like a sheet. You ever been on water or seen water? Like you stand next to it and it's just like, looks like a sheet. It's still. And the thing about a child or even a human being, like we like to see our impact. Like you almost I gotta throw something in that. It's too still. This is the same impact that small pebble has on that lake is the impact that your actions, your thoughts, and your words have in your life. You throw that pebble into the lake, and then there's a ripple. And that ripple will eventually make its way all the way to the other side of the lake. You may not be able to see it. You may not be able to feel it. But the impact of that, you know how it sounds? Boop, like boop, right? The impact of that rock hitting the water will eventually hit the shore on the other side. That is the impact that your actions, your thoughts, and your words have in your life. The law of divine oneness. The law that we're all connected. The impact that you have on other people. Right? My impact on our day, his impact on me. Like think about this. Like here's another way to think about it, right? So our day put together a reel not too long ago that I think it got over like 70,000 views, man. Right? Now, so I did the show, shared it. That's a little boom, right? Our day takes it, manipulates it down to a 60-second reel. Then that's put out there into another lake. Like all these ripples that are hitting people. All these ripples. Like that's an impact. That's energy. This one was on the idea that Easter is largely pagan. Right? This one, man, it went viral. Like people just like, man, close to 100,000 some views, right? Should have got 1 million. My point is, that's an impact. Now, so that's my word. I can see the impact of that word. Ade took it, manipulated it, and had something to do with it, right? Somebody shared it, and it went out there. It's no different. I could speak something into some negativity into my son. My son takes that negativity and acts out with my wife. My wife is now in a mood, and she takes that and gives it to her sister or her mother. You get what I mean? This is why the other laws matter. Because the other laws basically tell us that you have to maintain a certain vibration or frequency. This is law number 2. These are, again, the immutable laws. So if everything is connected, that means that I can be influenced by both the positive and the negative. So if that's true, then I must pay attention to law number 2, which is the law of vibration. This is why there's certain people I just don't mess with. I already know your ripple ain't something I want to be a part of. Right? You are not going to shift or change my frequency. And so, because I can feel your vibration, I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I don't need that. Right? The law of vibration basically states that everything in a universe is in a constant state of motion. And it emits a very unique energetic frequency. So another way to think about this is that our thoughts, our words, and our emotions carry a vibration that will attract similar energies. So you bring that negativity. Like, I'm at a point now where I can't hardly stand it. Like, anything negative, I like it. It just, now, it may have a lot to do with my frequency. Now, what do I mean by frequency? Right now, some of you are listening to me via 1690 AM. I want you to think of it like this. If my frequency is 1690 AM, WVON 1690 AM, and I'm listening and I'm thinking, this is good. And then all of a sudden, I hear some static, right? I hear static. What do? I grab the knob to begin adjusting the frequency. What does that look like in my life? You bring negativity, that's static. I grab the knob to adjust the frequency. Get out, shut that down. What are you saying? Stop talking like that. I don't like that. I'll reflect it. Hey, why are you being negative? Now, like, I need my frequency to stay positive. Sometimes it even requires for me to remove myself, right? You walk into a room right now, you're listening to the radio. Maybe you got, this is old school, one of those radios with the battery. Got the antenna up right now. You walk into a room, it starts to get staticky. What do? You remove yourself from the room. Oh, this doesn't have a good frequency. It doesn't allow the frequency to emit properly. And so I need to remove myself from this situation. I need to remove myself from this room. Because the law of vibration states that if I stay in the room and I allow my frequency to get distorted, then all of a sudden it will impact the state of emotion, and emit a different frequency. And I want to make sure I stay with the frequency of intention, the intended frequency. Now, this one is huge. As a matter of fact, I still got time. Have you ever walked into a room? Have you ever walked into a room and you know something just went down? Hey, ain't nobody said nothing. Nobody had to say nothing, right? You just walk in and you can't help but say, what happened? What happened? Now, and then you know how some folks do. Nothing. And you can look and you can just tell, something ain't right. Something ain't right. Hey, here's something funny. I told my wife years ago, my sister-in-law just married who is now my brother-in-law, right? But when they were dating, I remember walking into the room. This is back when they first started dating, right? And when they first started dating, I walked into the room. I could feel a vibe. Now, mind you, they were friends before. When I met him, he was just a friend. I didn't feel the vibe, right? And he was in that friend vibe. But then one day I walked in. I went to go pick up my wife for a date. One day I walked in, and they were in the kitchen area. And I walked in, and it was a whole different vibe. I said, oh, right? If Vivian and Laz are listening, I said, something's going on with Vivian and Laz. I could tell. Like, the vibe in the room was just different. So my wife comes out her room. Mind you, she moved through the room so fast she couldn't feel it. Because she was, probably running late for the date, whatever. She comes from her room through the kitchen. We walk out. We get in the car. I say, what's going on with Vivian and Laz? She said, nothing. I said, oh, no. Oh, no. There's something going on. Why? Because I could feel the vibe. I could feel the vibration. There was something happening between them, right? Yeah, but that's how you get into a vibe with somebody. Me and my wife, we had a vibe. We operate on a particular frequency. I did a show some time ago where I talked about sex and what's not taught about sex when it comes to a spiritual perspective. The law of vibration right here. Oh man, you want to shift your vibration fast? Have sex with the wrong person. You can be on a good vibe, everything going well, everything happening right. Everything is dialed in, positive, feeling good, life coming together. And then it's a Friday night, you out, like, oh, you get the vibe in with someone and you feel like y'all got the same vibe. You feel like that. It seems like y'all on the same frequency. So then you lay down with them. The next morning, your frequency shifts. You're trying to figure out why. It's because in order for that to, like, sex creates a completely, like, a unified vibration. It's spiritual. A unified vibration. And so now, in order for, like, when that happens, all of a sudden, the vibration, your vibration shifts to their vibration and the same, right? Like his vibration could be different, her vibration could be different. In order for that, boom, when that happens, same vibration. Both vibrations can shift. Just like that. This is why sex is so important for marriage, right? It keeps them on the same vibration. Keeps you on the same vibration with your partner. Right? Now, if I shift my vibration outside of Pam sexually, this is when the gut says, what's going on with Linnell? Like, some of us have been there before. What's going on with you? What you do? What you do different? There was a shift in frequency. There was a shift in vibration. The law of vibration states this. You can't get around it. You can't operate around this. Now, for those of us who are married, think about this. If everything in your home is lined up, everything is going well, your children are prospering, your home is prospering, you're on the right vibration and frequency, do you really want to let lust pull you into a different frequency? Do you really want to shift your frequency over a matter of 5 to 10, 15 minutes in a way that it may be almost impossible to tune back in later? Like, think about that. Like, you ever been in the car, like, you know, and you hit the dial and it changes and you're like, ah! Like, just that one little mistake, now it takes effort to retune. Takes, like, some of us remember those old dials where, you know, if you hit it, boom, you just say, you got to get it. Yeah, it takes, you know, it sounds like, right? Some of us old school folks remember that. Here's the other thing. Your frequency, your vibration is so sensitive that if you walk into a negative experience, like you walk into a room where a lot of negativity happening and you don't leave, guess who else is going to be negative? You sit down with a bunch of folks gossiping. If you stay sitting, then guess who else is going to be gossiping? It's just that, you know how they say birds of a feather flock together, the law of vibration. The law of vibration, because if you're not that bird with that feather, they're going to put you out. Justin, you got to go. Like, man, we don't like you no more, bro. You always, every time we want to do something, you're like, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't do that, fellas. Maybe we shouldn't. Justin, you got to go, man. You a simp. Then, then we start, you a punk, right? You got to go. Justin, you need to find some righteous brothers, right? Who will vibe with you. Who will vibe with the law of vibration. You ever seen a couple who try to fake being mad at each other? You walk up on them and you're like, hey, how you doing? And then, one of them is shifted like, hey, how you doing? Then you could tell it was tense. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt something? No. And then the other spouse is like, no, everything's fine. You're like, but no, it's not. It's not. I was just headed to the bathroom. I'm gonna keep going. It's just right? You can feel the frequency. You can feel the vibration. You can tell when people ain't pleased with you. You don't got to ask. You do something, you can tell. You look at, sometimes they won't even look you in the eye. It is the law of vibration. These are immutable laws. You can't manipulate. You can't change them. You can't change them. You can't like, and this is the thing, like, and I brought sex up. This is what makes sex so powerful and so dangerous. Right? If sex is not happening, when we started the show, we talked about it from love energy. Right? Love energy. If the source of sex is not love energy, it cannot be anything other than disconnected, chaotic, and fear-based. There's only one of the laws we're going to cover, maybe next week, is the law of polarity. See the up or down. See the good or bad. You can't, and the thing is, no matter where it falls, it changes the frequency. There's going to be a new frequency. I think maybe a couple of years ago, I talked about the frequency of music these days, right? It's one of the reasons I don't listen to much music, because what was done is they actually adjusted the frequency of music so that it would have a chaotic impact on human beings. It used to be a certain, I can't remember exactly what megahertz it used to be, but then they went and adjusted it. Now what's happening is they're beginning to readjust. Like, now that the knowledge is happening, like people are beginning to understand, wait a second, I saw an advertisement not too long ago for like a little whistle or flute that you could blow. And it's adjusted to a particular frequency, like a healing frequency. You all understand this? Like, there are healing frequencies. This is the law of vibration. There are frequencies that you can align yourself. There are frequencies that will bring sickness. And we got to be careful what we listen to. Like, because so many things that we can't see are happening within these laws. And that's why I said this is one of the most important lessons that I will teach on the 12 universal laws. We got to understand these things. Like, when I started to understand this stuff, it was like, yo, everything shifts, everything changes. Everything, I can't, I did a show a few weeks ago. It was probably a couple of months ago. And it was called Relationship Talk, How Your Energy May Be Getting in the Way of What It Is You Want to Create. And I brought this show because I have been working with clients who, they were trying to enact the law of attraction for a relationship, right? So they're like, I want to attract the right person, all these things, right? The law of attraction is just one of the 12 universal laws. But they knew nothing about the law of vibration. So their vibration was still single. Their vibration was unavailable. Their vibration was angry. The vibration was anxious. And they're like, well, if I'm enacting the law of attraction, why is it not working? Because you have to understand all 12 of the universal laws, that your vibration is off. So if you're not dialed in, you can try to affirm something all you want, but if you're not tuned into the right frequency, it's not going to show up. This is what they didn't teach about the law of attraction. I'm teaching you right now. Poverty has a certain frequency. Poverty has a certain vibration. You shift your vibration, you can shift yourself out of poverty. How do you do that? You say, well, how do you do that, coach? Well, what causes your vibration are your emotions. This is why, sex is emotional, right? Like, men, man, I don't feel nothing. I don't feel nothing. By the way, there's a law of gender, there's a law of polarity, right? So the impact on someone's vibration can be different. This is why I say, ladies, you got to be very careful, because a man can walk away with maybe the least amount of shift in vibration due to a sexual encounter. There's a shift. There's a shift, bro. Don't get it twisted. But it may not be the same as that young lady's. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to go into it. You just got to trust me. There's a lot of reason for that. That's why ladies who try to play the same game as men, be careful. Because there's a law of gender, there's a law of polarity that correlate to the law of vibration. And then number 3, the law of correspondence, we're going to talk about before we close. And see, because we don't understand all these things, we live in a world now where women are being told, you can do whatever men do. Girl, go get yours. I'm out here operating like, Over time, you will notice that your frequency turns to a dark one. It's a frequency of death. It's not going to help you. Why? Because I said it. There are only 2 ways of going about this. Love energy, God is love energy, or the opposite of that. We look at the law of polarity, the opposite of that, which leads to disconnection, chaos, and fear. You can't have it, you can't have it any other way. I wish somebody had taught me like this when I was a young man. I wish somebody had broken this down for me so I didn't have to, wallow and search the way. What they told me is just don't do it. Fornication is a sin. But we don't understand why. Why is this a part of darkness? We don't get it. The law of correspondence. If the law of vibration, I said that if your frequency is poverty, then you'll be poor. If your frequency is wealth, then you'll be wealthy. The law of correspondence states that your external world reflects your internal state. Let me say it again. The law of correspondence states that your external world reflects your internal state. What is happening in your life is a mirror of your beliefs, your thoughts, and your emotions, and your actions or inaction. Like, some of the things you're not doing, right? Your actions or inaction. The law of correspondence is also spiritual. Like, all these are spiritual. But this one in particular, I want you to really understand that patterns in the spiritual realm are reflected in the physical. What we see happening in the world right now is a result of what's happening in the spiritual realm. Let's look around you. What's going on? We coming up on June. Like, watch what happens. Like, everything that's correlated in the physical realm is a reflection of what's happening in the spiritual realm. For those of us who get this, I'm speaking cryptic on purpose, right? For those of us who get this, consider that right now is a good time to start creating the hedge of protection around you and your family. Creating a spiritual hedge of protection. Because what we will see manifest in front of us in the next month or so is a reflection of what's happening spiritually, right? So then you have to create a spiritual hedge. You have to create a spiritual hedge. When you understand the law of correspondence, you can stay ahead of it, right? You can stay ahead of it. Put a shield of protection around us, both physically and spiritually. Guard us from unseen danger, right? Unseen being spiritual danger, right? Hidden danger, both spiritual and physical. The law of correspondence also states, and I'm going to take these phone calls. The law of correspondence also states that if I hold negative beliefs about myself and I doubt my abilities, then basically I will create the obstacles and setbacks that keep me where I thought I would be. I'll create them. I will create the problems that persist that don't allow me to overcome them, all based on my own belief, because my internal state must reflect my external state. My internal state must reflect my internal state. So who I am internally is a reflection of who I am externally. You cannot hide. You cannot hide. You want to know how I know some people? I don't even got to go to your house. I already know it's chaotic and disorganized. I don't even got to walk in your house. You ever go to somebody, they running around trying to pick things up? It's like, whatever you picked up didn't really matter. Whatever you just tried to clean up didn't. It's clear that your home is dirty, disorganized, and chaotic. Like whatever you thought you just did, don't really. But by the way, it was already reflected in your being before I showed up. It was already reflected in your being. Folks try to hide things. It's reflected in your being. We can see you. You ain't hiding nothing. Your internal state is evident in what's happening around you. What's happening around you. That's why they say cleanliness is next to godliness. Your internal state is reflected in your external state. This is why I think it's so important that we focus in on ourselves. I don't got time. I ain't not worried about what you doing. I promise. I'm so focused on me because the focus I have on me allows me to clean my own closet. And once my closet is clean, then I know I can show up the way I intend to show up. You understand? Like once my car is vacuumed and clean, I know I can show up the way I intended. Once my home is clean, I know I can show up the way I intend to show up, right? You see me brushing off my shoulders. Right? I can show up. So even if you catch me off guard, what you see is what I intend for you to see. There's nothing hidden. My internal state reflects my external state. Right now, my office is messy. The reason why is because of what's been happening my focus has been on that 20% that we talked about, right? It's like, it's intentionally not clean, but everything else has to be handled. Hey, my inspired peoples, Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.